Good morning, friends. It is Seed Starting Saturday, and it's your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler. And y'all are actually sitting in my seed starting tub. Are your feet getting a little muddy? Anyway, friends, so glad to be here with you this morning. And we've got a lot of fun lined up. First off, I did my sunflower seed sowing yesterday inside the app on the Friday show at 12 noon, so that today I can demonstrate and talk about and show you guys the commercial soil blocker that we're carrying, the Swift blocker. And we'll talk more about that. And I'm going to actually attempt to do it. It's a little hard for me to do it because I'm on a laptop so that I can really see your questions. And anyway, we're going to do the best we can, but I think we can make it work really well. So first off, I want to welcome anybody that is new. We have so many new followers. I just want to say we appreciate all of you guys that actually share us with your friends. And if you're new here, I am a commercial cut flower farmer. Literally never knew this would be my path in life. This is my 25th year in business. But a few years before that, I started dabbling in gardening, found out flower farming was actually an opportunity and pursued it. And here we are. I am in the middle of the city, of a city of 200,000 people. I cannot have hooper greenhouses. I have never had them. I grow everything outside in the field, and I have a little grow room here in my big garage building where I start seeds to plant outside. So, my motto is if I can do it, anybody can. And so I have been a successful flower farmer since 1998. And anyway, so last week I gave you a little bit of homework, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So you all know that yesterday was National Arbor Day. And while I am not what some people would call a tree hugger, I definitely understand the importance of trees. And we have some significant trees here on our property. We have a saucer magnolia that Stevie's grandparents planted back in, we think it was the 60s. It is enormous. They think it's perhaps one of the grand champions in the state of Virginia. It is so big and beautiful. And we have an arborist that takes care of it. And that's probably the part that I want to highlight about Arbor Day. Trees are so important, right? I mean, they're home to so many creatures. They just make so much possible, right? Not to mention all they do for the environment, right? But what I want people to understand is, first off, trees have a life. That doesn't mean that you're not supposed to cut down trees at some point in time. Trees get sick. And trees often get sick and diseased because we don't care for them. And that means having annual checkups. And I also wanted to share that, and I say this because I have two tree men. I have an arborist. That is a person that is knows how to take care of trees, to make them live longer, diagnose problems, just really keep your trees super healthy and recommend pruning. Then I have this is what he calls himself. I'm not calling him this. He says, no, I'm a tree killer. He's the guy that is a pro at taking down trees that need to come down. I mean, he's taken down 2 dead 100-foot gum trees for us over the years and is getting ready to do another one because they're dying. And so what I just want to point out is you don't call my friend Kenny that takes trees out to diagnose your problem or care for it. You need a certified arborist. And I do. And he doesn't look at all my trees, but he looks at those that are important, that are older, that I think have a problem, because I keep an eye on my trees. And that's all I'm going to say about that. That's kind of like your educational tidbit of the day. Is there's a big difference in all those big trucks most often that you see going down the road, the cranes. Those are tree guys that take trees out, but they don't necessarily know a lot about keeping trees healthy and alive. So take that with a grain of salt. Now, we assigned you guys with, when I say we, Jessie is on here with me. Jessie's the producer of our live shows now, and she's kind of keeping me in check, right? And so I asked her to remind me that last week I asked everybody to go and look up what a baby ladybug looks like, or a juvenile ladybug looks like. And so I'm going to give y'all about a nanosecond to comment in there if you actually were here last week and actually heard that. And then Jesse has actually brought us a picture of a ladybug, juvenile ladybug, eating some aphids. So, you know, I would gander to say I used to love, as I mentioned last week, I used to love showing an image of a juvenile ladybug eating aphid, or not even eating aphids, just a picture, and asking. And you'll have to keep in mind, oftentimes I was speaking to master gardeners, horticulturists, commercial growers, garden clubs, people that, you know, are kind of gardeners like I am, right? And I didn't know this either until I happened upon it. And to say, does anybody know what this is? And, you know, like maybe out of a crowd of 100 people, one or two people would raise their hands. And when I would say, folks, this is a baby ladybug. And just like a teenage kid, they eat so much more at that stage than they even do as an adult. And now, y'all, I'm going to attempt to bring the picture up so you can see it. Jesse has brought it here for me. And there it is. It's a video. It's a little glitchy, but you get the point. Y'all, I could watch this all day. So I guess you're figuring out that the ladybug juvenile is the black one, and all those little yellow bugs are aphids. And aphids actually come in a lot of different colors. Aphids are a really common spring pest. Aphids are particularly drawn to fresh new growth, which of course spring is that way. And so these ladybugs, which we have an actual infestation out in our garden, not really. I mean, we have like ladybug parties going on everywhere, and we have tons of juveniles, as you're seeing here. So this is them before they actually put their shell on. And in my opinion, I will tell you that what I would say at those conferences is that I feel like about 98% of ladybug babies are smashed because people look at them and assume that there's some bad bug. They look like a little crocodile when you look at them. And I'll tell you how I discovered this. Actually started my journey on figuring out that there were actually good bugs. And then I learned that in fact, less than, like 1% of the bug population in the world, or the species, are really the bad ones. The other 99% actually have a role in life and feed somebody else or benefit us. We had just moved into Steve's grandparents' home place right after we had finished the renovation. We moved in. His grandpa was a big gardener. There were grapevines here on the property. And they had not been trellised for many, many years. Steve lived here as a biker bachelor dude for like 10 years, right before I came on the scene. So I was trying to tie up these grapevines, and I came across a bunch of these little bugs. And I thought, I remember learning in Master Gardener School that we should identify everything before we squish it. So I stopped, went inside, and I, in fact, had the book that I recommended, I think, to you all last week. It is the best basic book to have. It's called Good Bug, Bad Bug by Jessica Walliser. And it is made to go out in the garden, so you can check it out. Anyway, I went inside and learned that those were ladybugs. And that started my journey of always never squishing or killing anything unless I know what it is. And I just hope that helps you guys kind of understand that it's a much bigger picture than just squishing and killing stuff. All right, so let's see what else I have to say to you guys today. So secondly, you can see many of these flowers. Those flowers over there are from a book photo shoot. The flowers behind me over here were the flowers that I showed yesterday in my 12 noon show inside the Gardener's Workshop app. So if you want to see these flowers up close and personal, check out it. Yesterday was our Mother's Day gift show. So we highlighted a lot of great stuff. If your mom or somebody in your life for Mother's Day is a flower lover, we have everything from the beginner flower arranger to growing a little garden to, I mean, everything you can imagine. And friends, I'm here. And we actually had a little toolkit too that was awesome, including my shears and pouch, just those essential things. And your mama giving a seed collection, which is my 3x10 cutting garden, along with a couple just essential accessories and tools, they will be thanking you all summer long, y'all. It just, buy them a little bunch or something, or cut something out of your yard and give it with this. And it's just a lot of fun. So check that out. You'll find our app inside your phone's app store, Gardener's Workshop Live Shop. Go in and watch the replays. And the perk of going inside of our app is that we always offer free shipping on seed only orders. That means you can go in there and buy 20 packs of seeds or 4 packs of seeds, and we pay the shipping on that when it's seed packet only shipping. So that really, really helps. So today I promised that I was going to be talking about the Swift blocker. I have been a soil blocker. That was the beginning for me as a flower farmer, right? I mean, I discovered Elliott Coleman 28 years ago, I guess, through Lynn Bazinski, who wrote the original Flower Farmer book that started so many of us, right? She led me to him, and that's where I learned about the really basic concepts of soil blocking. And it just fit my situation because I'm this little urban farmer in the middle of the city, couldn't have greenhouses. I lived in a bungalow, tiny bungalow, like 1,100 square feet. Didn't have a grow space, right? Didn't have this building I'm sitting in. And I learned from Elliott the concept of soil blocking, and then I tweaked it into a tabletop method, meaning while many people use trays that have drainage holes in them that are in greenhouses, and it doesn't matter that the water drips everywhere, I decided I tried that at first. Oh my goodness, what a mess it was. So much work. So I figured out how to use solid flat bottom trays. I prefer flat bottom to keep the soil blocks rigid, as well as there's no water sitting there, not making contact with the soil and being absorbed and causing troubles. So we use flat bottom trays with no drainage holes. And so that's what I've done for the past 25 years. I mean, we started when we were at our peak of high production, which ended about 3 years ago. Now we probably only start, I'm going to guess, 20,000 seedlings a year. Back in our high production years, we were upwards over 100,000 of the small soil blocks a year using the small hand blocker. And y'all, we were so quick and efficient at it. And it just made it possible because we could fit so much in a really tiny space, right? So imagine my delight when I was contacted by Dan of Swift Blockers. He is the designer and developer and maker. He's located in Michigan with his wife, who, thank goodness, decided to become a flower farmer. And that he's an engineering kind of guy. I think he is actually an engineer. And he thought, there's got to be a way to make more blocks quicker than the handheld. And that's what he did. And so we have brought them alongside our Ladybug blockers. And I just think it's so interesting for me. I understand. I think it's part of why I feel so connected to new and upcoming growers and gardeners, because I'm always trying new stuff. And when I try new stuff, I am right back at ground zero, y'all, just like you feel like you are, like learning how to do it, applying those actual steps, right? So I am still in the perfecting my madness method of making Swift blockers, and I'm doing it a little bit different than most other people do. But before I start making them for you, which I am going to do that, I want to just talk about and show you some seedlings and talk about, because we're getting this question a lot. It's like people are saying, oh my gosh, I don't know which one to get. First off, if you are a new and upcoming grower, and even a seasoned grower, as you'll soon hear from me, I am still totally using my small blocker and the 2-inch blocker, because there's situations where I don't need, 75 or 27 or 200 of a size blocker, right? So let's first just look at the blockers that I've been using. Let's just look at some seedlings. So the small blocker, which is what we call the 3/4 inch, this is actually Mahogany Splendor Hibiscus. This is 40 of those small blocks. Hibiscus is just a perfect example of why I do not need to grow it in a bigger block. This was started April 3rd. What is today? The 29th. So these are 23 days old. They're ready. They're going to be planted. Actually, I'm saving them for a photo shoot on Monday. Then they can go to the garden. Hibiscus is an incredibly productive plant. I mean, it branches like mad. 40 is pushing it. I probably should have only started 20. So I would not be starting these in the mini 75, which means the number means how many blocks it makes at one time. So this is definitely potential, the one that I will still in the future be using the small blocker for. And then this is a vegetable, but because we still grow tons of vegetables here on our farm, these are cucumbers. And I don't need a lot of cucumbers, right? So 27 is the larger size blocker of the Swift blocker. And that's what I would probably start a cucumber in if I needed 27 of them. But these guys are March 30th. So these guys are 4 weeks old. They are ready to go to the garden. And I'll tell you, I've been holding them off. I've been kind of stalemating them, trying to slow them down, waiting. It's just still cold here at night, y'all. So I'm just saying to you that in my application here as a small market gardener, grower, farmer, whatever you want to call me, the Swift blockers are like coming right alongside for those things that we grow massive amounts of. And I'll share with you too, if I was still in high production, how I would be using it. So that's the 2-inch. Aren't they beautiful? These will be planted next week also. So let's look at, I don't have any Swift 75s made with something growing in them. Unfortunately, they got mistakenly planted last week. I was holding them off for this, but I do have some of the 27s. So the 27, which I'm going to show you the tools here in just a moment. This is Cerinthe, which is a cool flower, and these were grown for seedlings. It's too late to plant them here where I am. And so this is a bigger seed. And I would definitely not plant this in the small blocker. I definitely want more than 8 or 12 or so. So the 27 mini of the Swift blocker 27 is the perfect fit for this. And something interesting, you're learning something new all the time. There was only one seed placed in each one of these blocks. And almost all of them, I don't remember this happening in our I think we started these in plug trays before. Look at the roots on here, by the way. But each one of these blocks sent up 2 plants. And I'm the one that sowed these seeds, so I know they didn't have 2 seeds in them. So these are the Cerinthes. This is like the perfect size to actually plant them out in the garden. So the 27, I would use the 27 for sweet peas because I've always used the 2-inch blocker, but I always want more than a few. This will be the perfect solution for that, right? So any seed that I have used in the plug trays, 128s, this could be used for sunflowers, although I will say that I am still using plug trays for that because that's a 128 tray, and that would just take too many of these. So that still hasn't solved that problem for me. But what would I use these for? I can see calendula. I can see, actually calendula might actually go in the 75. But sunflowers would be a potential for the 27 if you're not making hundreds and hundreds of them, right? And then the other use that I have for this 27 is one of the methods that Elliot taught me was sometimes when you have plants that you really want to plant close together, and like for us as flower farmers, I think of kale, single stem celoseas, anything that's a single stem, potentially sunflowers. When I plant multiple seeds in a cell, this might be a good solution for that. Ornamental kale, that is a cut flower kale that grows tall, to encourage really skinny stems because they can get really thick and that just deems them unusable, to grow really tall with thinner stems and to grow upward, is we used to plant 3 seeds in one cell. And then we would plant all 3 of those. You don't separate them. You plant that whole little plug on your regular every 6-inch spacing, but there's 3 plants. Well, guess what? The 27, and these are old, y'all. These, I just keep saving them. I can't throw them away. It's not the proper time for them to go to the garden. This is the ornamental kale, and you can see some of the leaves looking not so great, but you can see that each block has at least 2 to 3 stems in each block. So these would be super easy to use this for. So again, I'm saying, and I understand if I was just starting out and I had limited dollars, I definitely would invest first in the hand tools. Then as you get up and you're ramping your business up, you want to know what I compare it to? I thought about this morning. I compare graduating to the Swift blocker, like me only having a walk behind tiller for the first 12 years of my flower farming life. Then I bought a tractor and a bed maker, and it like ramped up my business. And that's exactly what the Swift blockers will do. But why would you want to ramp up your business out of the gate when you still don't know how to farm, you still don't have customers, you still don't know how to maintain a commercial working garden? So I'm just saying to you that would be my natural step, is hand tools, then figure it out, become a good soil blocker, become a good seed starter, and then you go to the next step where you start a lot more in a very limited amount of time. However, I will say that I can still see that some things, for instance, like we grow literally bazillions of celoseas, and this is celoseas. This is the small hand blocker, the 3/4 inch, and this is celosia that was just born. It was started April 24th. So what is that? 5 days old. I just took this off the heat yesterday. So when I put the mini 75 on this same size tray, which it's a perfect fit, you're going to see here in a moment. This is 100. That may not sound like much to you, losing 25 plants. But as a small market grower, 25 plants can be significant. So for me, at this point, I don't see me not starting celosia this way, but we'll see what time tells. So I'm just saying that you have to find the fit for your operation and your conditions. So let's take a look at the tools. So, and I'm going to actually, sorry, y'all, bringing up part of my book. All right, so I want to like lift my seat up here. Tucker's like right at my, oh, sorry, boy. All right. So I am going to set you guys over to the side here. And y'all are going to get to see more of my background than I want you to, but that's just the way it is, right? So the mini set, and I was practicing here this morning. And I do also want to give a great plug to the no-till growers. Y'all are obviously watching me on YouTube. If you check out the no-till growers YouTube, Jesse just did, he actually used the 200 count, which fits into a big 220 tray. He did a review and showed how he used it and his evaluation of that. And he actually shouted out to us, and I just appreciated that so very, very much. So if you want to see the 200 that makes 200 of the same size block that I'm getting ready to show you. So here is, let's see the best way to show this to you. First off, when it comes to you, it's like this. It doesn't have dirt on it though. And so it has a top tray, and it has these little dibbles that you actually put on. You pop those on, and they send you extra ones in case one comes out. I actually haven't had one come out. I know that Jesse noted that on his video, but I have in fact not had that happen. So this is what we're looking at. Look at this, y'all. You make 75. These blocks are just a smidgen smaller than 1 inch. And if I remember correctly, Dan told me that the volume of soil in this block is twice as much as the 3/4 inch blocker. And so in addition to being able to make 75 blocks in one push, the addition of having that little bit bigger mass can really relieve the pains for some people. You know, because I started out with such a small, I mean, I didn't have this building. I was literally doing this in my kitchen, my pantry, and my basement. And my basement was like a dungeon, y'all. I did anything to keep from going down there. So I was trying to use my actual pantry and kitchen to do this. So I was always squeezing in as much in a small space as I could. So I've been doing it for 28 years, y'all. I have become a professional at caring and growing in those small little blocks. And I know that you've probably seen through the years, and you just go back through social media, I grow up until now, I have grown 99% of all the seeds that I start in the small 3/4 inch block and grew it in that block until it goes out to the garden very successfully. So it can be done. But the 75, the Swift Blocker 75. And so I don't know if I showed y'all this part. See, it's got their logo and their name on the top, which I think is so very, very cool. The 75 is just a little bit bigger, and it buys you extra time. So if they're sturdy when they go to the garden, Bobo has now been planting them, and she said they're definitely sturdier plants, just meaning they'll take a little bit more abuse. We're professionals at seeing that our plants get what they need to survive, right? And she said that level of care is just not as necessary with these. And while some people like not having to water every day, I in fact see watering every day as a key piece of life cycle. So we are in our environment, I'm still watering them every day. However, it's not as critical. If you're a few hours late, you might not have, weeping plants from being too dry, right? So let me see what else I want to tell you before I start doing this. Now, these are our trays that you'll find these over on our website. These are hard plastic. We import these from England. They are super hard molded plastic. These will last you forever. And the Mini 75 and the Mini 27 actually fit perfectly in here. And it leaves the allotted space that I recommend. And also the other thing is, what you'll learn is that the larger soil blocks, meaning the Mini 75 and the Mini 27, are heavier. So you really have to have super stiff, sturdy trays. I don't know how people use just regular 1020s. I don't use 1020s. And the mass of soil that these hold, because there is so many more of them, because we've always used cafeteria trays for great numbers. And I want to say this before I start demoing, 2 sets of either one of these, the Mini 75 or the Mini 27, 2 sets fit beautifully on the cafeteria trays that I've also been using for all of these years. So I am going to, let's see, what are we going to do? I am going to turn you around here. So, I guess I should say this too. I use the same exact soil blocking mix, definitely sifted. And as it kind of reaffirmed me to hear Jesse say that he agrees that sifted soil, because what happens if you have little chips and sticks and things in it, it can block the mold going, the press out part, pushing down and fitting inside the grid. So I definitely still do that. But one thing that I do differently for the way that I'm doing this, which is different than everybody else, I think. And, I hate to be the odd man out, but I will tell you that I use less water. So I've always made soil blocks super wet because that makes best blocks. They come out of the blocker. They do beautifully. Well, the way that I'm using this Swift blocker, if it's too wet, they'll fall out of the bottom before you can get them to the tray. And I'll tell you, I've just big old shout out to Jesse, because he also pointed out that one of the struggles that I was having is how soil, the way some people do it, they load the blocker in the tray, and then you have to scrape the excess soil. Oh my goodness. Sorry, y'all. The excess soil that falls over the edges gets in your tray. And that's a major problem sorry, y'all, I'm putting my phone in airplane mode. It's a major problem when you're watering and it just kind of interferes with things. So the way that I've done it is I press the mold just like I make the other blocks. And I try to keep my hands clean. Not that I don't like getting my hands dirty, but it just makes a blooming mess. Y'all, if you don't know anything else about me, I am like so streamlined. It's like I'm always looking. It's like, don't waste time doing that. Don't waste time. I had to run back and forth to the sink to wash my hands off several times because I was getting mud and dirt and grit everywhere, which made it more difficult to do what I was doing, right? So I do use less water. This is my official measurer. I have two of these. I have a dry one and I have a wet one. And when I've already got my block and mix made, I use 3 scoops, 8 cups. This is 3 scoops of dry to 1 scoop of water is my typical mix. But when I'm doing Swift blockers, this measurement is just extra water if we need it. But when I'm doing Swift blockers, I put like a quarter less of water, making it wet, but not super wet. And so we'll see what kind of job I actually did. So I just wanted to leave this on hand in case we needed it. And I'm going to make the 75 first. And I will also add that I think there's a benefit to actually using a concrete mixing tub because it's big. You can buy those at any big box store. They're cheap. It's bigger than the tray that I use here, but it's kind of like it does not fit very conveniently here because it just takes a little bit more room in the tray. And I'm pretty sure I have too much soil in this tray. So we're going to, y'all, I'm not afraid to mess this up while we're doing it, right? Because I just want people to know that I mess up too. I mean, everybody messes up. I don't care how long you've been doing stuff. You still screw things up. And I screw up and learn from my lessons, right? So, and I also have 2 of the scrapers here. I have a dry scraper for seeding. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And I have a wet one, which I use to scrape with. So I'm going to actually make the 75 first. The 75 is the easiest to do in this method. The 27, because the blocks are bigger, you really need the soil to be not wet or you're not going to be able to get them up. And you have to have room in the tray to actually break the suction off the bottom of the tray. All right, so I'm going to move this so you guys can watch. So I think you can see it. And I also want to add that you can go over to the garden. I think Jessica has actually added all the links here. You can go over and see yet another video of up close of me doing this if this isn't quite what you need. So I'm taking the top tray off. And where am I going to lay that? Y'all, I need so much more real estate than I have. So if you can see, I've just made a pile of soil that's kind of the same shape as the blocker. And I am just going to push this down into the soil, just like I do the hand blockers, right? So I push it down till I get to the bottom of the tray. And then what I have learned, and it taking just an extra moment to do this step, saves you cleaning up so much stuff. So I'm just using my potato masher, which is what I use to mix soil with. And I'm just loading a little bit extra soil on top. And then I'm just using the potato masher to smash it down into the blocker. And I've definitely put too much, but better too much because we're going to scrape it off. And the potato masher is like the perfect size for the top. All right, y'all. let's give this a try. And so I'm going to use my wet scraper to actually trying to keep from getting my hands all mucked up here since I have to operate the computer and everything else. All right. So I'm just using the scraper to scrape and smash, and you're just pushing off that excess. And when you're pushing the soil down into the blocker, it just is, you just definitely need to pay special attention, and we'll see how well I did it, to the ends, the corners, and see, I've just definitely got too much soil in here. So I'm just going to push this away so I make space to actually get this thing up without. All right. And so we're going to actually put this right onto a tray here. We'll put that right there. I think y'all can see that. I left some soil poops in there. All right, so you have to break the suction. And again, we'll see how this works. You just lift it up, place it into the tray. Now, I want to stop and talk about this. This is how there's just so many options with this blocker. Now, this is the scraper that I was just using. Well, it has, for the Mini 75, these holes, and those holes are intended to let you sow seeds, particularly seeds that I find people struggle with, tiny seeds, snapdragons, celosias. You put this on the tray, you can dump seeds right here, and it's kind of concave right there so it holds the seeds, and you just literally put your finger on a seed and take it over to a hole and drop it, take it to a hole and drop it. You can be very quick and efficient, but I tell you what's even better. When you then do that to the entire tray, and then you bring this over here, and I wonder how I'm going to do this, and put this on top, and you're going to push them out, that seats celosia and snapdragons, which need to be on the surface, not covered with soil. This does a great job of doing that, and people really struggle with that. So let's see, y'all. I'm doing this kind of from afar. First off, I make sure it's kind of down in the, and there you go. Friends, how's that? 75. Y'all, my phone is on airplane. How can phone calls still come through? All right. So, looky there. 75 blocks in one little push. Now, I'm going to make 27, and then I'm going to sow these with Cosmos. And let's see here. So let's give this a try. Let's keep the dry one dry. So I'm going to do the very same thing. I'm just going to pull out a pile of soil, and as you can imagine, the 27, which is bigger, takes more soil. And again, this one is a little bit more, you learn quick how wet is too wet. Let's see how we can do with this one. All right, so this is what the 27 looks like. So this makes 27 1.5-inch blocks. I mean, this would be perfect for sweet peas, calendula. I mean, I just see this really being helpful in a lot of situations. All right, so do the very same thing. I'm going to push it in, get down to the bottom of the tray, and then I'm just going to use my potato masher to top load it. But more importantly, I think using the potato masher to push it into, especially getting in the corners. I mean, and some of you, like me, don't have outdoor spaces like a greenhouse where it's just, this is just easier to do for me. All right, so now I'm going to smash it in. And again, pay special attention, and this is true even with the small blockers and the handheld tools, is to pay attention to the edges and to the corners. All right, now let's scrape this baby clean. Then offload the excess, and you kind of figure out like how much is too much. You know what I mean? The better you are at not putting too much means there's less to be scraped off, right? Now, again, you could, for instance, you could drop sweet pea seeds, any seed that does not need to be covered. You could actually just drop them on the top of these blocks, then push them out and sprinkle them. That do need to be covered. Put them on, lay them on top of this block, push them out to get good contact, and then sprinkle vermiculite on top. I know people are doing that. I've just never been a vermiculite user, but I tried it and it definitely works. All right, y'all. This is really scary because it's too wet. I really did do this right before. I need more room. So if you struggle with this like I am, it's obviously too wet. I can see moisture sitting on the top of these. See how they're coming out? You've made beautiful blocks without even lifting it. If that is a struggle for you and you're making a lot of these, then I would say to make them in the tray, top load it. Let's just try it. Top load it, trying to not be so messy so you don't have so much to scrape off to fall off on the sides, right? And, you know, y'all, this is all about perfecting your system, but I find it to be useful. I mean, all the 27s that we have, I probably have 10 trays of it. I made the way that I just showed y'all with the 75. And see, it's just so easy for the soil. And you can also use the scraper to do this. You know, you can actually use this to actually load it and press it down in. Nothing like trying something new for the first time while you're live on YouTube, right? And again, taking an extra moment to not spill so much in the tray pays off later. You know, if I wasn't stretching across my tub here because my computer's sitting here, this would be much simpler and faster. All right. Let's just see how to offload this. I don't see how to do this without. Tucker is perusing the floors while I'm so distracted looking for something. All right. So as I mentioned, you could definitely sow your seeds, especially big seeds, right? Right on the top of this. Like that's how I did actually the Sorrenti. All right, so let's put the top part in. Something is stuck over there. See this little piece of bark? That will stop it from going down. I mean, that'll stop any blocker, not just this blocker. There you go. 27 1.5-inch blocks in not very long at all. So now I'm just going to show you how I would sow Cosmos in these 75s. I'm actually going to put this tray down. Tucker's directly under my feet, and he'll probably start eating it. All right. Me again, y'all. All right. So I'm going to just put y'all down here with me, and I am going to sow some Cosmos. Get my chair down. So we have the 75. And Bobo has asked me to do, so we've actually got our first almost, I just got dirt on my face, y'all. Just have gotten most of our first warm season tender annuals in. And unfortunately, we've had to cover everything. So these are like little, sticks. And it doesn't matter which end you put in first. They just need to be covered. And so that means that I'm just pushing them right down into the block. And I also want to suggest, I've put too many in my hand. When you can scatter them in your hand, it is so much quicker to pick them up than to put a whole big pile, which is my tend. I tend to do that. And then I'm pushing it in, and the little tail can still stick out. But the essential part is down in there, and it doesn't matter which end goes in, y'all. I find it easier to put the pointiest end in first. I can tell you I'm probably skipping blocks because I'm too distracted, talking and sewing at the same time. And so you could have done this before you pushed them out, then pushed them out, and it would have pushed them the rest of the way in. It's all about whatever works, whatever you're sewing, and how that goes for you. Or you could lay them on the surface. I have done this. Sprinkling vermiculite over it. The vermiculite, creates darkness, retains moisture. And I definitely believe that it's all about your environment, whatever your setup has. I have a really warm room that has fairly decent humidity just by the way it is. And I just don't have a problem with surface sewing or blocks not getting dead dry in one day. And of course, I water them thoroughly, right? That also helps to create that great environment. And I'm going to stop at this, and I'm going to have to lay this seed packet there. So I sewed to right there, so we can come back up here. So I'm just going to look through and see if we have any questions. And y'all, I'm just here to say, do whatever you got to do. And even though I had made those 27s at least 10 times that I have evidence of in trays that way, sometimes things just don't work. And if I was not here with you guys, I'd have gotten more mix and dried it out some. You know what I mean? Added a little bit more soil blocking mix and made it drier. And chances are good it would be great then. So let's see. Sally. What are you to do when your evening temps are only reaching 60 for a couple of weeks in the summer, 6B in Idaho? That's a great question, Sally. So I have friends that are flower farmers, all over the country, well, all over the world actually, but some of them, for those warm season tender annuals that really don't thrive until they're really getting warm and staying warm overnight. I think of coxcomb as one of these. A lot of them grow them indoors, grow them in hoop houses, which that may or may not be a suggestion for you. I know a lot of people out in Washington State and Oregon where they have a lot of wet weather and cool temperatures. I can't imagine growing celosia indoors, but that's a whole different ballpark. So I would say to just experiment of what warm season tender annuals that you can grow that do great under those circumstances. But here is the lemonade of your lemons there, Sally. You can probably grow cool flowers, cool season hardy annuals all through your season. You can probably grow bells of Ireland and snapdragons and all these stock and dianthus and all these things, larkspur, longer into the season, right? So that's what I would focus on, what does thrive in your conditions. And then throw in a little bit of warm stuff and see what just does okay. I would guess that celosias could be okay if you got them good, healthy transplants in a warm situation. Wait until, you're at the warmest period of your season, and plant them then and grow them through the hottest part, if you even get hot, and see how that goes. Patricia, is it possible to make blocks too packed with soil so seeds have a hard time germinating? That would be hard, I think. I think it's more about your ingredients. I know that some folks, there's a huge controversy, which I am not getting into. I use peat moss. Some people like to use cocoa fiber because they feel like it's more sustainable. But if you do a deep dive on that, you may find that it's no different in the long run than peat moss is. But I find that cocoa fiber does compact more than peat moss does. It's fluffier. So it's not, on top of using cocoa fiber, which is fine, it's really fine after you sift it. Then if you really make your blocks compacted, that can definitely make a block that doesn't have good air circulation in it. So I would say the answer to your question is yes, you can, but it's more about your ingredients. But I tend to make my blocks, like I'm sitting here looking at those ones I just made. I could have packed them a little bit more, but I was feeling pressure. So you just have to practice. But I think if you're using good ingredients, I'm afraid my seed packet's going to get wet. Wait a minute, y'all. I'm going to tear off a piece of paper because it's really hard to see where you stopped and started. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. I think I'm just going to turn my phone off. What do you think? That is the third phone call I've gotten. My phone is on airplane and do not disturb. So that's what I would recommend to you. Super Cat Tot. The valleys in between the soil blocks look even closer together than the normal soil blocks. When I water, it stays around the edges and not in between the tiny blocks. What can I do? So I'm thinking that you're talking about a Swift blocker, and mine seem to be pretty defined. So I would say that is definitely a case because it's the bottom portion of the block. You need to be sure that your blocks are filled and compressed, that the bottom is definitely scraped clean. I mean, that you've moved it so that you're making delineated little water channels in between that. So I would look at the way that you're making them. But I know what you're talking about. That was the very first question. The people that are seasoned soil blockers here on the farm, Bobo and my sister Suzanne. Suzanne's been on the soil blocking wagon since I've been on it. Bobo's been doing it for 13 years, I guess. The both of them standing next to each other as we unpacked them. They said, so how's the water going to get around to everything? And I said, well, we're going to find that out. I have not experienced that, but I think that's because of the way that I push it down into the soil and make sure that the blocker goes all the way through the soil. So there's a division. So you just need to pay more attention maybe to your process on that. So let us know how it works out for you. Fresh. Do you have a list of plants you start in the minis and the ones you start in the 1.5 and 2 inch blocks? I'm also looking for how many weeks ahead of planting to start them and starting in the minis. I do not. It's all in my noggin. There might be something in my course about that, but we've just added the 1.5 and the minis on board. And so I am still kind of experimenting with that. And, I would really, so one of the things that we talk about or people talk about or say about me, I guess. I don't know how to say it, is that I am pretty notorious for not teaching you, giving you fish, but teaching you how to fish. What that means is to look at a seed and you decide, what should I start this in? Is this a seed that I want 200 plants, or do I need 20 plants, or do I need 75 plants? And all of that is part of my process. The first level of triage is, what's the seed look like? If it's a tiny seed, I immediately go to the small blocker. I have now started some of the tiny seeds, Snapdragons and Celosia, in the mini 75s, and they did great. And seeding was faster in those, but you lose 25 plants per tray, or on a cafeteria tray, which would hold 240 of the small blockers. The 3/4 inch block holds 240. It only holds 150 of the Swift blockers, mini 75. So that's all part of my process, you know? So that's how you process that. And I'm sure that there will be a list that'll probably be added to my Flower Farming School online for my students that we can update as I find. But that's the process that I follow. First off, how big is the seed? What will it fit in? Then how many plants do I need? It does not make sense for me. For instance, so we start peppers and tomatoes. We don't grow to sell. We do for our families that are part of the farm and business. So I don't need 75 tomato plants but it would work beautifully to start tomatoes in the mini 75. And on the other part of the equation problem, because I'm hear somebody now saying, well, I'll just start different things in one set of blocks. But here's the problem. Stuff germinates at different rates, significantly sometimes. Even within the tomato family, we've learned that Roma tomatoes, can take 2 weeks to actually germinate, right alongside the big beefs and the celebrities and the Cherokees, the heirlooms. So if they were all in the same tray, what are you going to do when those that don't germinate yet? You're going to take them off the heat that they still need to keep them warm, to get them to sprout. But your other varieties are starting to lean. Another thing is peppers. Peppers would do, our ornamental peppers, we started in the 75 because we grow them as cut flowers. That's a perfect fit. But for our small vegetable garden, that I don't need 75 of any one pepper, right, for eating. So you just really have to, I was raised by a man that really taught us, my mom and dad both, but my dad particularly, to really figure out our own problems, to give us the tools and the opportunity. And y'all, if me messing up, making the mini 27s live on YouTube don't give you leeway to screw stuff up and learn from it, so I would just encourage you to party on fresh and to kind of figure that out for you and your actual operation. So thanks for asking. I love my 2-inch blocker and just getting used to my new Mini 20 for Cosmos. Which size should I use? Zone 5B with hoop house and semi-heated garage. Great questions. We definitely put Cosmos in the small 3/4 inch blocker normally. I'm doing this because we're experimenting, right? So I'm starting a little bit of everything in different sizes. But Bobo just planted 8 trays. We have 14 different Cosmos on our website. I grow them all. And so we just planted almost all of them. They were all in the 3/4 inch block. They were 3 to 4 weeks old when we planted them. And again, it just allows, it's like losing extra plants is more significant for me in my situation than having more watering options, perhaps. So it's really, now you have so many options, and we will be helping people wade through those. So that's where we actually use the 3/4 inch. And so, friends, I hope this has helped you. Now, we have a great kit over on our website where you get the mini 75, the scraper seeder, 5 of these killer trays, and the DIY mix, which is the nutrients you mix with your compost and peat moss or cocoa fiber. And that clock is going off again, y'all. It tells me that it's 12 o'clock. So It's over on the website. There's like a $15 savings when you buy them all together. And I just recommend that you figure out what is best for you and go for it. But this is just, the Swift Blocker is an amazing efficiency tool, and just giving you more leeway. And so friends, let's see what else I'm supposed to say. The clock on the wall. Oh, I just turned my phone off, y'all. The clock on the wall sounds like it's going to explode, and Tucker is convinced that it's going to explode. There's an alarm set on there that Suzanne has tried to disconnect or get rid of. She worked on it again yesterday. Apparently, it didn't work, right? So y'all just waiting for my phone. So I want to remind everybody that this coming Wednesday, I think we have a guest on our Ask a Flower Farmer that is actually Dave Dowling, I believe, this week. And then let's see here. Oh, it's actually me, I think. You'll have to see who's actually Jessie posts on social media. And guess what I'm talking about on our show next Friday is we are celebrating celosias. So if you have questions about celosias, plumes, coxcombs, branching, not branching, bring them on. And then join me right back here next week for Seed Starting Saturday. And thank you guys so much for joining me. And if you're one of my students, I posted a special video inside our closed group about images for your business this morning. So go in and check that out. All right, friends, until we meet again. Ciao. You're so welcome.